All right, we're going to get started, everybody. I want to thank you all for coming here. The room will get crowded as time goes on. And I will leave time for Q&A at the end. So please, if you have questions, write them down. So when I ask you, you'll remember your question. I don't want to do questions during the talk because I'm going to answer a lot of your questions that you're going to have after the talk. Then you're going to say, well, he answered that already, so I don't need it. So as we get started, my name is Paul, and I'm from West Palm Beach, Florida right now. And I grew up in New York, if you can't guess that already. And I'm going to be talking today about the formula for health. And the formula for health is something you can apply to your life regardless of what type of diet you eat. The principles are going to help you heal from your conditions and possibly a good chance overcome them. And I have firsthand experience and knowledge in this happening because when I was growing up in New York City, at 19 years old, I got diagnosed with an illness that there was no medical cure for. And to this day, many years later, there's still no medical cure. And I'm not really interested in medical cures. I'm interested in healing and cures. So I've been better now, and some people want to say in remission. I say no, I've been healed now for many years. And when you understand what causes the problem, you understand what gets rid of the problem. And we're going to talk about that. One of the key things I'm going to tell you here today is health doesn't begin what you add to your diet. It begins what you eliminate. It's a very important concept to understand. I know there's a lot of people here teaching and giving you a lot of booths with different products and everything else. The good news is what I'm going to teach you today is simple, easy, and free. It doesn't have to cost money to be healthy. We were created to be healthy. Sickness is due to us not doing the things we were designed and created to do. So I'm going to get a little of my background, and then I'm going to get into why I chose to teach the formula for health and how you can apply this starting today and feel better. How many of you want more health and energy? And you could have that. So wonderful. So as I was growing up, I was always into sports and trying to be as best I could from an athletic standpoint. And when I was 19 years old, I was achieving my goals in doing that. I didn't think much about diet from a nutritional standpoint, but I looked at diet from an athletic standpoint. Well, when I was 19 years old, I started to develop some really bad stomach pains, and I didn't know what to do. I did what I was trained to do at that time. I went to a doctor. Actually, I went to the emergency room first because it was so bad. I got really bad pains, and this kept happening. I kept getting these stomach pains. After going to the emergency room several times and them telling me I had food poisoning, I decided to go see a specialist. I saw a doctor, and the doctor diagnosed me with something called inflammatory bowel disease, also known as ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. Anytime you have a disease that ends in the letters itis, it means there's inflammation somewhere in the body. So I had ulcerative colitis, which was inflammation of the colon. It's a very, it wasn't as common back then as it is today. And let me correct that by saying it was as common, but it wasn't understood back then as it was today, or as many people weren't diagnosed with it as they were back then as they are today. But a tremendous amount of people are suffering from this today. And my doctor told me there was no known medical cure. And at 19 years old, she told me I was at a high risk for getting colon cancer. But at the time I was 30, I would probably have colon cancer. But she said, don't worry, we have a cure for colon cancer. I said, wait a second, you have no cure for healing inflammatory bowel disease, but you have a cure for colon cancer? And she said, yes, if we cut out your colon, you can't get colon cancer. This is what the doctor told me. But I didn't know better. The doctor was my God. I listened to the doctor and did whatever she said because that's what I was trained to do as I was growing up. So the doctor gave me some medication. We call it drugs, we call it medication, whatever you want. And she gave me a piece of paper when she gave me the medication. It says possible side effects to this medication. And I said to the doc, I looked at it, and I went to the pharmacist to take it out. And I didn't understand. I said, the pharmacist gave me a paper that said major side effects to this medication. I didn't know who to believe. Well, I took the medicine, and I found out real quickly the doctor was incorrect. I started to experience some major side effects. I actually don't call them side effects. I call them direct effects because they directly affected me. I don't know why people say side effects. I know one medication, it actually says possible side effect, death. This is not one side effect I'd want to live with or live without or whatever you want to say. So I went back to the doctor. I said, I'm not feeling well from all this medication. So guess what she did? She wrote me another prescription to the side effects to the original prescription. And the same thing happened again. And before I knew it, I felt worse than I ever felt before, and I wasn't better from my original problem. I had all these other problems. I didn't know what to do. So that's when somebody told me diet had something to do with my condition. And I'll never forget, I asked my doctor, was there any connection between my diet and my condition? And she said, there's no medical studies to prove there's any connection between inflammatory bowel disease and my diet. Now, I found that kind of interesting because at that point, she didn't even ask me what my diet was. But she still said there was no connection to it. Well, since she wasn't right about anything else up to that point, she wasn't getting me better, I figured I'd look more into this. And then somebody told me if I eliminated dairy products from my diet, my condition would begin to heal. So I asked my doctor, because that's all I knew what to do at that point. I said, is there any connection between dairy products and my condition? And she said, there's no medical studies to prove there's any connection between dairy products and my condition. And that's when I got smart. Without telling my doctor what I was going to do, I decided I would eliminate dairy products from my diet to see what would happen. There was one problem. I didn't even know what dairy products was at the time. I knew it was milk because it had a cow right there and it said dairy milk. But I didn't know it was ice cream and butter and cheese and all these things. The majority of my diet consisted of these things. But I was determined to do something different to get different results. So I eliminated dairy and I began to feel better. And that's when I made several connections. The first connection I made was diet did have something to do with my condition. And the next connection I made was my doctor didn't know much about health. So then somebody told me if I stopped eating animals, my condition would continue to heal. So I asked my doctor, was there any connection between consuming animals and my condition? Take a wild guess what she told me. She said there's no medical studies to prove there's any connection between consuming dairy products and your condition, animal products in your condition, or animals. And so when she told me that, I stopped eating animals completely, and I started to feel better. I was like, this doctor's amazing. Whatever she said, I did the opposite, and I felt great. And I tell people, if you want to be the healthiest person around, you find the most popular doctor. And whatever they say, do the opposite, and you'll be doing just fine. By the way, are there any doctors here? No, good, good. Now, some doctors are wonderful. If I get in a car accident, send me to the hospital. Don't tell me to eat an apple. Send me to the emergency room. But if I put something in my body to create an illness, the answer isn't taking some drug to deal with it. The answer to getting rid of it is getting rid of what's causing the problem. As I said, health doesn't begin what we add to our diet. It begins what we eliminate. Eliminate is the key. Everyone here say eliminate. Now say it with enthusiasm. Eliminate. Great. If you do that every day, eliminate with enthusiasm, I promise you'll be healthy. But this is the keys to health, to understand this. As a beginning, everyone's trying to add and buy things and get more things. But no, it's getting less things. So here I was eating a junk food vegetarian diet, not knowing any better. Everything I was eating was come from a bag, box, container, or a can. I didn't know better because I wasn't eating the dairy and the animals. I was feeling better. So I wanted to be 100% better, so somebody told me stress had a lot to do with my condition. So I wanted to be sure about this. So I asked my doctor, was there any connection between stress and my condition? And she told me there's no medical studies to prove there's any connection between stress and my condition. When she told me that, I knew I had to reduce the stress in my life. So the first thing I did to reduce the stress in my life was I eliminated my doctor. Right away I felt better. Now let me clarify, since I am from New York, I didn't eliminate my doctor. I just stopped going to visit her. I just want to clarify. So now I had to move to a more stressless environment. And New York wasn't the place to be if you want to avoid stress. So I looked all over the country. This was a long time ago, and I moved to West Palm Beach, Florida. Now, it wasn't too much stress going on down there back then. Back then, people knew how to vote down there. It was a very stressless environment. And I got there, and I kept seeing a van pass my house, and I recognized the van because it had a word on the side of it that I couldn't pronounce. And one day I said, if I see that van one more time, I'm going to follow it to see where it's going. So the van goes past my house and stops at the parking lot of a health food store. And I followed it to see what would happen. And all of a sudden, the back doors swing open of the van very slowly, and I see about 6 of the most sickly-looking people I've ever seen practically fall out of the back of the van. And then I see this healthy man come out in front of the van, and he starts walking towards the health food store, and I start following him. Now, I got out of my car and tagged along the back of the line, hoping this fellow couldn't count too well. We get to the front of the health food store, and he turns around, and he says, I'm going to tell everybody what's healthy in a health food store and what can heal you of your conditions. And all I was thinking to myself was, I hope he doesn't take us over to the produce section because I hated the taste of fruits and vegetables. Take a guess where he took us. Right over to the produce section. And he said, here it is. This is what's going to get you all better. And I remember I asked him, I said, what happens if we don't like the taste of fruits and vegetables? I'll never forget, he looked me right in the eyes and he said, who are you? And I told him, I said, my name's Paul, I'm from New York. I have something called inflammatory bowel disease, and I want to get better. And my doctor told me the only way to get better was to cut out my colon. And he said, that's crazy. I said, I agree. That's why I'm here. And this was the first day of my life I've ever been to a real health food store. Up to that point, I've been to many fake health food stores, but never a real one. Now, I'm not a negative person, so I'm not going to tell you the name to those fake health food stores. I'll just give you the initials, GNC. But if it doesn't have produce in there, it's not a real health food store. And here he's explaining this. The fellow was from a place called, I could say the word now, Hippocrates Health Institute. Back then I was like Hippocrates, I didn't know how to say it. The Hippocrates Health Institute. It was a raw food health spa where they taught people how to get better from all types of illnesses that doctors had given up on. And I was like, wow, this is the first time I ever heard of this. And I went there, so I moved right near there, and I went to their store and I read a whole bunch of books by a lady named Ann Wigmore about eating wheatgrass, and Victoria Skovinskis about enzymes, and I was so excited. I was going to do this and get better, but I had to hear it from one more person before I did it. So I called my doctor back up in New York City, and I told her, I'm going to get better from this condition. She said, how so? I said, I'm going to go on something called a raw food diet. And not only did she tell me there are no medical studies to prove it'll work, she said it's very bad for my condition. So when she told me that, I knew I was on the right track. That was the last time I spoke to her. And I went on a raw food diet, and I got completely better. And then I was so excited and zealous to get this message out, I became known as the crazy guy in Florida, because I'd be the guy outside the supermarket telling people, that's going to kill you, and people were running away from me. They didn't want me anywhere near them. So I had to go somewhere else where I fit in and I didn't look so crazy. So I ended up moving back to New York City. And I thought I was going to be the only person in New York City eating raw foods. Nobody was going to be eating this way, but I wasn't going to talk about it. I was just going to do it. And then one day I was going to the gym. It was like 4:30 in the morning, and I saw this young, attractive lady on the subway. And by the way, a subway is not only a place you get something to eat. It's a train that goes under the ground. I was on the subway at 4:30 in the morning, and this young, attractive lady was the only one there. So I figured I'd speak to her, and I started talking to her. It turned out she wasn't young. She was a grandmother, and she was quite old. And I said, how do you look so young? And when she gave me the answer, I thought I was on candid camera. She said she's on a raw food diet. And I don't know why I whispered. I said, is anyone else doing this in the city? And then she told me some other people that were doing it. She told me about a support group that was doing it. And I went to that group, and then I started leading that group. And then I wrote some books about the raw food diet. I went all over the country and all over the world, and I interviewed people who were eating a raw food diet for many, many years that I had found. And then I wrote a book about that. And I literally wrote it because it was before I had a computer. And then I had a second book with more interviews. And then I wrote several other books. And I had a restaurant in New York City, and a raw food restaurant, the world's biggest raw food restaurant that ever existed. And I've just been eating this way, and it's been over 20 years now on a raw vegan diet. I have to laugh when people tell me, oh, you can't exist for more than a couple years on a vegan diet. I'm like, oh, really? Thank you. Have a good day. So I've been doing this, and it works. But there's a right way and a wrong way to do everything. And there's a wrong way to do a vegan diet. There's a wrong way to do a raw food diet. You know, people always tell me things like, oh, I see people that eat a vegan diet that they don't do too well. I know people that eat meat that don't do too well. You know, you have to do things the right way. So one of the things I desire to do is tell people how to do things the right way. And that's what this talk is going to be. And like I said, you could apply it to anything. You're going to be fine. So after I wrote those books with the interviews, I wrote a book naturally about healing inflammatory bowel disease. I got that book out there. And then I wrote a book about the formula for health, which we're going to talk about today, because I was always interested in older books. Because the newer books, they're always trying to sell you something to get better. You got to buy, you have to pay to get better. And I know that's not the case. We don't have to do that, because I didn't do that. The only thing I paid for was fruits and vegetables. So the older books, in the old days, that's what they taught you, how to do that without buying stuff. So I read a book, all these old books, but there was one book I came across by a fellow named Arnold Ehret called The Mucusless Diet Healing System. The Mucusless Diet Healing System. And in that book, he had something called the Formula for Health. And the Formula for Health is what we're going to talk about today. And if we apply this formula, we are going to be healthy. So it's going to be wonderful. Now, I still want to look at older books and everything else. And after I wrote my book, The Formula for Health, somebody told me there's an even older book that has, it's a wonderful health book. And I said, great health information. I said, well, what is it? Well, I said, does it have information there about the raw food diet being the best diet for man? He said, absolutely. I said, does it have information in there and testimonials that people have been eating this diet and living a long time? Absolutely. Does it have information in there about the formula for health and how to overcome disease? Absolutely. I said, well, I want to read that book. It's not a new book because I don't want to buy stuff. Is it an old book? They said, yeah, it's an old book. It's the oldest book. He handed me a Bible. And up to that point, I had never read the Bible. And I looked at Genesis 1:29. It said, the food for man is fruits and vegetables. So I said, I'm going to be interested in reading this. And I read the book, and I found it to be this amazing health book. And then I started to teach in churches. And as I started teaching churches, I saw more prayer for healing of disease than any other topic. I was like, how could these people have the greatest health book ever written and have disease? Then I found out something. It's not what you have, it's what you do. So you got to use it for it to work. So I started teaching about healing and health and disease and everything else, not just what we eat, but when we eat and how much we eat. And it talks about all this stuff and all these great healings. And then when I discovered that our Creator just doesn't tell us what to eat in Genesis 1:29, but He tells us when to eat it. I'm going to talk later today about the times we should be eating our food, and I wrote a book called The Daylight Diet. It's so important, no matter what type of diet you eat. If you stop eating late at night, your health is going to improve. People say, you show me in the Bible where it says we shouldn't be eating at nighttime. I say, if our Creator wanted us to eat at nighttime, He would have made fruits and vegetables glow in the dark. He didn't. He's given us a plan to live by and when to eat it and what to eat and the food to eat and the colorful fruit for our eyes, the hands to pick the fruit, and so on. He didn't give us sharp teeth to grab an animal, chase down an animal, and just kill it and eat it. And I was always outspoken about what I know to work with the raw food diet and stuff, but more recently I've become more outspoken than ever, and people gave me that label of crazy guy again, but I don't care because this information is getting out there now so much. There's a movie that's going to show you all that this works because one of my things is, as I said, I've always been into athletics, and a lot of vegans out there, especially raw vegans, are way underweight. They're way too skinny, and they don't look too great. But me, I've always been into exercising and wanted to prove to people that you can have muscle on a vegan diet. So recently a movie came out, and I've become very outspoken about the animal things because it shows the science behind it. It's called The Game Changers. If you didn't see that, it just came on Netflix. It's called The Game Changers. Please, please see that movie. Has anyone here seen that yet? Yeah, it's so convincing and shows you about the meat industry and what it does and how the meat and the animals are not healthy for us and what we shouldn't be doing. And so I wrote all those books, and I have some of them out there today, but I want to discuss the formula for health today. Because what I found out is it doesn't matter about nutrition or about health. People aren't eating for these reasons. People are eating for pleasure. That's why they're eating. And if you make the food good and bring people enough pleasure, they will eat it. It doesn't matter where it comes from or what it is. People will eat the food. Somebody says, how can I get my family to eat a raw food diet or a vegetarian diet or even a dead animal? Make the food taste good and they will eat it. Make it taste bad and they won't. That's the bottom line. So people aren't looking for food for nutrition, which is a good thing because a lot of the foods out there today don't have nutrition. But the key is they're not interested in health. People are interested in disease. I can give health lectures all day and there'll be a small crowd, but if I have health lectures how to avoid disease or cure disease or get rid of disease, that's when people start listening. People don't want disease. So I want to focus on disease. How do we identify it? What causes it? And how do we get rid of it? If doctors knew these answers, then they'd have a cure for it. But they don't. So everyone's looking about or thinking about this thing, and this is what's going to really motivate people. And I don't want people to be thinking, well, you had to change because you were sick, and when I get sick, I'll change. If you change now, you'll never have to worry about disease. Here's something you need to understand. There's only one disease with many different stages. There's only one disease with many different stages. And if you take care of identifying the disease in the beginning stages, you'll never have to worry about the later stages. All disease can be cured in any stage. But it's much easier if you catch it in the beginning stages. Somebody said to me once, Paul, my doctor told me I had only 3 months to live. What should I do? I said, you better find another doctor. There's no medical test. There's no way of knowing how long a person truly has. But with the formula for health, we can know that no matter where it is, our body has a point where it can't return, but nobody knows how to tell when that point is. If you're going to a doctor that says you have 3 months to live, they're only going by that track record. That's not a good track record. You want to go to a doctor that has success in healing people and doesn't give them this diagnosis and give up on them. So, but the formula for health is this. Power minus obstruction equals vitality. You want me to say it again? It again. Sometimes power minus obstruction equals vitality. Meaning health minus disease equals wellness. We are born with a tremendous amount of energy and very little obstruction. Obstruction is stress and the things we shouldn't be putting in our body and so on. These things can't move in the right direction. As our obstruction goes up, our power comes down. This is why everyone gets sick at a different stage, and everyone's at a different stage of health. As long as we have enough power or energy to get rid of the obstruction, we're going to be in some stage of health. The more farther apart, the more health we'll be in. But once that obstruction becomes more than the power to get rid of it, we now have the beginning stage of disease. And if we identify disease at this stage, we could just reverse that. But if we don't, we keep making a problem worse, worse, and worse. Next thing you know, we have the latest stage of disease, no energy to do anything with it, and that's when people usually go to a doctor or something, and that's when it's over. Because they start listening to the doctor, and it just takes them farther and farther away. If you eliminate what causes the problem, the health comes back and the problem goes away. That is the formula for health. So now we have to understand the important thing. How do we identify dis-ease? How do we know we have it? What are the beginning signs of disease? And it's the beginning stages of the one disease that we all have, or the one disease that's out there. It's the beginning signs of disease. And it's laziness and constipation. These are so common in today's world that people just think it's normal. But it's not. These are the beginning signs of disease. Laziness and constipation. In fact, I know people that are so lazy, they're happy they're constipated, so they don't got to get up and go to the bathroom. That's how bad it is. But these are the beginning signs. Now, what causes these two things? What causes these beginning signs of disease? And it's two things. And no matter what diet you decide to eat, no matter what you decide to do, if you want to be successful at achieving the formula for health, pay attention to these two things I'm going to say right now, and you will get better. The beginning signs of disease are created by overeating and undersleeping. You want me to say it again? It again. Overeating and undersleeping are the beginning signs of disease. Sleeping is another word for healing, that's where healing takes place. It's all about the quality of the blood, and the blood is healing when you're sleeping, assuming you went to sleep on an empty stomach, and the body is working the way it's supposed to work. Sleeping is free, and it's the greatest healing machine you could buy. It's the greatest thing you could do is get the proper sleep and proper rest. And I'm going to talk about that, how to get that. But understand, there's not enough time to get enough sleep and live our daily life while we're eating a diet that creates so much sleep need. The standard American diet, which stands for SAD, uses more energy in the process of digestion of foods than any other function of the human body. You cannot get the proper amount of sleep or healing time you need while eating the standard American diet. You can't. So people say, what am I supposed to do? Quit my job and stay in bed all day? No. Find out how you can get enough sleep or how you need less sleep. And that's where we look at the other part, overeating. Overeating creates a need for more sleep. The less we eat, the less rest and sleep we need. So now the question comes is, why do we overeat? Remember what I talked about earlier about pleasure? We eat for pleasure. Well, when we're not satisfied in things in life, we look to food for pleasure. And then we can get the emotional, spiritual aspects in why we overeat. From a nutritional standpoint, if the food we're eating doesn't have the nutrients we need in it, no matter how much we eat, our body's going to still crave what? More nutrients. So if we eat higher quality food, our body will get what it needs, at least from the nutritional standpoint, and we'll be satisfied with very little. And the body will be able to do so much with it. So now we got to look at the high quality foods. What's the highest quality foods we can get for our body? And now I give you this one. I said, how many of you own a juicer? Okay, how many of you use it on a regular basis? I always say, what does a juicer and a Bible have in common? Most houses have one, but nobody uses them. So you got to use them for them to work. All right? So So think about a juicer. What does a juicer do? It takes what it needs from the food for you to thrive, the juice with the nutrients in it, and it gets rid of the rest. That's what a good juicer does. And when you put the food in a juicer that you're supposed to put in it, like celery and carrots and things like that, it takes what it needs and it gets rid of the rest. The foods with the most liquid in them will be those types of foods. What happens if you stick bread in a juicer? It's going to clog up the juicer. What about a chicken wing? It's not going to do too well. Guess what? Your body is that juicer. The more food you give it that are high liquid foods that have the nutrients in them, the more efficient you're going to be and the more satisfied you're going to be. The highest quality foods have the foods that give our body the most while using the least amount of energy to get rid of them. The highest quality foods are the foods that give our body the most while using the least amount of energy to get rid of them. We today do the opposite. We eat the foods that give our body the least and make the hardest work to get rid of them. When we eat those foods that have high liquid content in them, those are the foods that are going to be best. And we think about food and what food should be. Food is supposed to have a life process to it. A ripening stage, a freshness stage, and a rotting stage. That's what real food is. You look at apples, oranges, celery, cucumber, that's what it is. What about a Twinkie? You could have a Twinkie in its package from 20 years ago and it'll still look the same way today. It's not food. It doesn't have a life process to it. Our Creator didn't make any mistakes when He created the food for us. He made the food just beautiful, a beautiful color and everything else. You know, He gave us a vision of color, unlike animals that don't have a vision of color, to see this beautiful food, to be able to identify the food and pick the food and eat the food. He created our bodies to digest these fruits and vegetables and this type of food. He even made the food look like what it's good for. Celery is great for the bones. It looks like the bones. It's the shape of bones. It looks like what it's good for. You know, walnuts are great for the brain. Avocados look like a baby in a womb if you cut them in half. It's great. The oils in the avocado are great for pregnant women. The food looks like it's good, what it's good for. What about a Twinkie? It looks like a coffin. The food looks like what it's going to help on the body. So we know what the best foods are. We know we need to get more rest and more sleep. Now there's emotional sides to this and there's physical sides to this, but power minus obstruction equals vitality. It comes down to the quality of our sleep. And the quality of our sleep is going to be determined by the quality of our diet. Bearing the emotional and spiritual stuff, but the quality of our diet. And if we do that, we'll be able to get the proper amount of sleep we need. You all have cell phones. You plug them in at night, so when you wake up in the morning, they're fully charged. If you forget to plug them in, they're not fully charged, and they're going to die out in the middle of the day. And that's what happens with us. We don't get the proper amount of sleep, and we die out in the middle of the day. And then we do some crazy things. Some crazy things. One of the most common things people do today that is a lead cause of disease is saying, I didn't get enough sleep, so I'm going to take a drug to stay awake. I would say 99% of the people in this country are drug addicts. Why? Because they're taking a drug every single day called coffee. One of the worst things you could do for your life. And we get to see there's no such thing as healthy coffee. That's an oxymoron. Caffeine creates adrenal fatigue. Adrenal fatigue creates need for more rest and sleep. That's how you heal from adrenal fatigue. Caffeine is one of the worst things you can do, but it's also one of the most addicting things out there. Other than grains, which I would say is the most addicting substance in our life, caffeine probably a close second. If you're drinking coffee, you need more sleep. You don't need more caffeine. People say, oh, I can't sleep at night. Well, that's because you're up all day drinking coffee. So when you think about this, it's not just what we're eating and the quality of food we're eating. I talked about earlier is the time we're eating. I have a book called The Daylight Diet that talks about this. I promise you, there's so much information out there now about intermittent fasting, about going to sleep or stop eating as early as possible and don't eat the next day till as late as possible, going as long as you can without food, letting the body do what it's designed to do, and that is truly where the body is able to do what it was supposed to do. It's called intermittent fasting. Fasting is great in general anytime, but if you can be on a regular basis, a consistent basis, giving your body free from food and free from water for a certain amount of time, that's when it's going to allow the body to heal the way it's supposed to. But we don't do that today. Why? Because people are eating way too late at night, and it's the number one reason people overeat. They're eating late at night. Eating late at night, if you stop eating late at night, everything from sleeping problems to obesity and everything else the rates would cut in half. It is the number one problem. Even if you're not eating a good diet, I would say eating late at night is worse than eating a bad diet. Because if you're eating a bad diet but not eating late at night, you're giving your body a chance to deal with all of that and heal from that. But if you're eating the best diet but you're eating all night long, your body doesn't have a chance to do what it was designed to do. We have to stop eating late at night, and I give tips in the book, The Daylight Diet, how to do that. But we simply eat too much, and then we go to the doctor. And then what does the doctor says? Well, you have an eating disorder. There's something called late night eating disorder. And now they make people feel good about eating late at night. And not only that, there's even something called sleep eating disorder. I thought this was a joke when I first heard about this, but it's real. People literally go to sleep, and then they get up. They don't wake up, but they get up in the middle of the night and eat without even knowing it. There's only one thing from a diet standpoint that I could think is more dangerous than getting up in the middle of the night and eating without knowing it. You know what that is? That's getting up in the middle of the night and eating and knowing it. And that's what so many people do today. So we have to create a way where we can get the highest quality foods, which we now know what they are, and not need to eat late at night. And the first thing you could do is get rid of your TV sets, or really TV programming. It programs you to sit in front of the TV at night and eat. Get rid of that box, and then get rid of your microwave box, and get rid of those two boxes, or you'll end up in a dirt box much quicker than you should be in. You want something practical to do? Get rid of your microwave and replace it with a juicer, and then use the juicer. And it works. So you're doing this, and the key is, if you get to sleep earlier, you get up earlier. You get up earlier in the day, and then you have more time to organize your food and know what you're eating. You start eating earlier. People say, well, I'm not a morning person. Yeah. If I was up all night, too, eating, I wouldn't be a morning person either. If you stop eating early and you go to sleep, people say, I'm not hungry in the morning. If I ate at midnight, I wouldn't be hungry in the morning. Stop eating earlier, and you'll be hungry in the morning. You'll have an appetite in the morning. Then you eat midday, and you don't need to eat more than 2 or 3 times a day. People snacking and picking all day and all night. They even have 24-hour fast food chains out there. And like, who's eating McDonald's at 3 o'clock in the morning? They're definitely not healthy. So between the coffee we're doing and the low-quality food we're doing and you eat it late at night, this is what created the problem. This is what builds the obstruction. Eliminate what caused the problem's going away. I'm sorry if I'm talking too slow, but I only have a certain amount of time. I could talk fast here because we're on the East Coast somewhat, or the Midwest, but I was in California last week and they had no idea what I was saying. But I'm glad to be here now. But this is the keys, and these are the things that work. And then you throw in the emotional stuff of it, of everything that happens. And this is what the average person does in the average day, and you tell me why we're not in the way we are today. The average person gets up at a time they don't want to get up to go somewhere they don't want to be going. And as they're getting to do that, they turn on the news to see all the terrible stories that happened the night before. Now they're so emotionally upset that they make something really unhealthy for breakfast for them and their family. Then they get in their car or on their train and transport themselves to a job they don't want to be with people they don't want to be with, to do something they don't want to do. But they think they're doing it because they don't have a choice, so they have that drug insurance. I don't call it health insurance, I call it drug insurance, because it doesn't pay for health, it pays for drugs. So now they get to this job and they're so upset about what they're doing and doing something that's not fulfilling their life. At lunchtime, they eat something that's unhealthy because they're emotionally eating. Then they come home and they turn on the news and get an update on all these stories, and then they make something bad for themselves and the whole family. And then they watch TV and eat more bad things. And then at nighttime, they do the worst dangerous thing you can do is turn on the nightly news. How do you expect to get a good night worth of sleep after watching the nightly news? And they do this every single day. If you want to be healthy in life, it's not only about diet. You cannot get up every day and go to a job that you hate and expect to be healthy. You have to do what you love. You have to understand what it is, figure it out, and you can make it happen. Or at least change what you're doing and start loving it. But you can't dislike what you're doing every day and expect to be healthy. There's something out now called the study of epigenetics, which has proven it's not just the science of the chemistry of the body that creates disease, but also our external atmosphere. The people we surround ourselves with, the things we do on a regular basis, the things we hear and the things we see. You know, some people say, oh, just think positive. No, live positive. Do things that you love. It has a tremendous impact on your health. Listen, I've been eating a raw vegan diet now for over 20 years. I've never had a cup of coffee in my life. I've never tasted an energy drink. Do I look like I have energy? And I got all these people telling me, oh, you need to eat animals, you need to eat animals. What is going on with people today? Look, I just put something out on my YouTube page that said, if you eat animals, you cannot be a pet lover. You can't love pets. And boy, oh boy, people really wanted to just kill me when I said that. I don't know how somebody could literally pet their dog and eat a chicken. But this is what happens. And in some countries, they're eating their dogs. But this is what people are doing. And then we get from a biblical standpoint, people say, but God says we can eat meat. You know, here's something I'm going to tell everybody, and this is so important to understand. Just because you've gotten away with doing something for this long that wasn't ideal for you, don't keep doing it when you find out it's not ideal for you. What we can do and what we should do are two different things. God gave us a plan A and a plan B. Plan A, He put us in the garden to eat the fruits and vegetables as our food. But as a result of man not listening to God, He kicked them out of the garden, the world's greatest health food store, and now they're out there and they got nothing else to eat. And in the mercy, He gave them something to eat. Not forever, until the fruits and vegetables grew back after the flood. Every single thing you need, and you can watch the movie Game Changers and it'll show you this. The nutrients, every single nutrient you need, especially and including protein, can be found in a vegetarian and vegan diet. You don't need to consume dead animals to get protein. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger was saying that's all marketing. Like they show in a movie in the old days before a football game that would have cigarette commercials promoting cigarettes. And now they have all these commercials promoting meat. It's marketing. And it's done a great job at convincing people that this works. Some of the people I've interviewed in my book, my friend Dr. Fred Bishey, he's 90 years old. He's been eating a raw vegan diet for over 60 years. Thriving. Of course, so many people aren't thriving because if you have to do this the right way, the only wrapper around your food should be the skin of a fruit or vegetable. If it comes in a bag, box, container, or can, it's not live food. It's not the food that's going to give you life. I was on this vegetarian junk food diet and I didn't know any better. But you can make those changes and it can change. If it wasn't considered food 100 years ago, you have to think, should I be eating it today? If it has to pass your car window for you to eat it, you definitely shouldn't be putting it in your body. But let me give you some practical things to do, because people say, oh, do you have some recipes, and how could I do that? First thing is, when you have your plate, a round plate, make sure 3 parts of it has something raw, ripe, fresh, and organic on it. That's it. Whatever you decide to eat and continue to eat, make sure at least 3 things on your plate, or 3 parts of your plate, has something raw, ripe, fresh, and organic on it. Whether it's fruit with breakfast, or a salad with lunch, or a smoothie with dinner, make sure you're eating 3 parts of that. If you can go more, great. Make sure you're getting at least 1 green vegetable juice in your diet every day. For me, juice is my answer and my key to everything. Greens and juice are my 2 favorite things. It says that life is in the blood, and the chlorophyll that comes from the greens is what heals me, and I would not be able to sustain what I was doing, I believe, without greens. No, people call me Popeye sometimes because I eat so much spinach, but I don't smoke a pipe. So I'm not Popeye. But the greens are so important. And you can get them either juice form, whole form, or blended form. Get greens in your diet every day. People say, how could I do this for myself and my family? They won't eat this way. As I said earlier, make the food taste good and they will eat it. Here's what happens is, you can eat, and to start out with, it's not the healthiest thing, but it's a way to get off meat. And understand you can get off meat. Thanks to today and all the different substitutes they have, you can eat the same exact diet you eat, or your family eats, by just changing to a vegan options. They have vegan cheese, they have vegan milks, they have vegan meat. You don't have to change a thing. And I guarantee if you take your husband or your wife that says, I'll never get off meat, to a vegetarian restaurant and don't tell them the difference, and they eat it, they might say this flavor tastes a little different, but they won't dislike it. There's so many things out there that you can do, so you can make these changes without changing anything. You can make the same, they even have eggs and tuna fish that are vegetarian. You don't have to change anything. Now that's not the ideal way to eat, because you're still eating things that are substitutes and these things, so it's not the ideal, but it's a great way to get off meat and know you can do it. And then from there, when you start feeling a little bit better, and you start understanding you really don't need the meat, and then you look at the ethical part of all of it and what happens with the meat industry and everything else, and you're not supporting that anymore, and I do believe there's a spiritual benefit behind that when you stop doing those things, and everything starts feeling better, and then you start eating healthy and literally eating more fruits and vegetables and juicing more and feeling better and having more energy, and your taste buds change. No, you're no longer getting up out of your bed and craving a dead animal. You're craving some fruits and vegetables. But the media is tricky out there, and people like that are tricky. some lady said to me, oh, she has a YouTube channel. She said, oh, I couldn't survive on a vegan diet, and I look absolutely terrible. And I told people instead of driving in a car going to work, maybe get a bike and drive their bike to work. And she said, oh, you know, Paul Nison probably can't even get up and ride a bike because he's on this diet for so long. She got more comments and more views on that video than just about any video I've done telling people you don't need to do those things. So I'm committed and dedicated every morning on my YouTube channel and on my member website, which is, you go to rawlifehealthshow.com. From 6 to 7 o'clock in the morning, I have a Wake Up Healthy with Paul show, just motivating you to get up. So you can go to the YouTube page, Raw Life Health Show. Raw Life Health Show on YouTube. And that's my member site is rawlifehealthshow.com. If you want to get even more stuff, you can go there. And for $1, you can check that out for 3 days. And if you want to be a member, I know a lot of you don't have money to do this, but it's only $5 a month to be a member for that. Less than a cup of coffee. I don't even know how much a cup of coffee is. I don't drink coffee, but I think it's more than $5 a month. So there's a saying, if you want to change the results of what's happening to you, you got to change what you're doing. If you keep doing the same thing and expect different results, that's the definition of insanity. Now, they do say you are what you eat, and many people call me nuts because I eat nuts. But we want to change what they're doing. You want to change what you're doing. So I have my books out there. You can contact me through my website. My main website is healthwatchman.com. And through there, you can get to my Bible website. I teach about Bible health. I still speak in churches all over the country. And I show what the scriptures are saying about living healthy and eating healthy. And living off God's plan A, not plan B. His ideal plan. I don't say it's sin to eat meat if we're eating the meat that he allowed. But why settle for plan B when we can get plan A and return to the way he wanted us to live? And the results are there. So please contact me. Stay in touch. Let me pass this around. If you want to give me your email, I'll take your email. And thank you. Thank you. So I do want to leave some time for questions. I do not have a booth out there. And when I leave here, I have to get to the airport early because when you look like me, you got to give yourself extra time. Look, I'm so excited about living this way and doing this diet, I don't have time to shave. You know, please come say hello. Please, I'm going to give you a few minutes to ask questions now. Please ask them now and not when I'm selling books. Somebody's like asking me questions and I'm trying to take down a credit card or something. But if you see me walking around out there, please ask me questions. I'll be happy to get it. I'm going to be walking around there for a little while. And, you know, we can't sugarcoat anything. We have to just tell people the way it is. So let's get some time for some questions.
What's your opinion on frozen fruit? I know some people that live up north have a hard time getting the fresh fruit. Is it as good? Not? Is it second best? What's your opinion?
Great question. One of the keys, or the key to raw food is the enzymes. The enzymes are the life of the food that helps the body not have to work so hard to digest it because it almost pre-digests and digests itself when it's fresh. When you cut a food or open or ship a food cross country and pick a food within a couple of days, you're already losing much of the enzymes. Now, cooking destroys all of the enzymes in the food. So cooking over a certain temperature is not wise at all. That's why we should only cook in a dehydrator if we cook at all. But with freezing food, it will destroy some of the enzymes, but not as much as cooking. So it's not fresh is best, but frozen is better than cooked, if that makes sense. Okay, another question? Yes?
What do you think about juicing? I mean, blending versus juicing.
Okay, great question, blending versus juicing. Anytime you're going to get, you help the body digest the food, it's going to help. Blending, it does a wonderful job, but it's not the same as juicing. Blended is like eating food that's been blended up. That's the function of our teeth. Whenever we eat, our teeth should be our juice blender. And we should blend up the food so the stomach doesn't have to break down the food as much. So for some people that don't like to chew their food, blending is wonderful and great. Juicing is a different function altogether. Juicing truly gives the body the most while using the least energy to get rid of it, to get rid of the waste or the least waste left over. So they're both excellent. I do them both, but I can get through the day without blending. I don't like to get through the day without juicing. And juicing the green specifically. Yeah, so anytime, blended, juicing, or whole form, get those greens in your diet. Yes?
So I used to have a juicer and I actually got rid of it because I got a blender that is really like high speed, so it breaks the cell wall still,
Yes.
and then it keeps the fiber. Would you consider that like a little bit better than typical
No,
blending? Or-
absolutely not. So there's a lot of great marketing out there, and some marketing says, "Oh, this blender will, you get rid of your juice, you don't need it, you can use this blender." Blending and juicing are always different.
Okay.
Blending and juicing, blending keeps the fiber in the food. Juicing separates the fiber. The fiber is great, and there's a lot of phytonutrients in the fiber and everything else. So blending is wonderful, but it's not the same as juicing. Juicing gives you the nutrients right into your bloodstream very quickly without having to deal with the digestive process of dealing with the fiber and everything else. They're both beneficial, but remember, the key is to get more by eating less. And blending helps us do that from juicing helps us do it from a nutritional standpoint. I think they're both very important.
Is that kind of good though, because then it slows down the process, so then it keeps you more satisfied and like.
What, the blending?
Yeah, and then the energy can last longer.
No, well, the idea we get energy from food is a whole nother story. That is, the less you eat, once your body is cleaned out, you're going to have a tremendous amount of energy. The key here is to understand it's not about speeding up metabolism, it is slowing it down. That's where it's going to be create a longer life. But the benefit versus, they're just two different things. It's like comparing apples and oranges. I tell people to have both in your diet. The blending is great because it helps you if the food's already digested, you don't have to chew it because we don't chew enough. But the juicing is ideal in getting those nutrients to your body.
Okay.
And it depends what we're blending and juicing as well. So I think if we need the greens, we need to get the greens in. And there's not enough way to eat or even blend enough greens to get the greens we need. So juicing accomplishes that also. Yes.
Fruits and raw vegetables, can we have it together, or what is your suggestion on that?
There's something called food combining, which is very helpful. And in my books, I have a food combining chart, which talks about what foods go better with what other foods. Now, when you blend them and juice them, it's not as important or as critical as eating it separately, but you want to eat the foods that have the most liquid with foods that have the most liquid. So eating a watermelon with a banana isn't the ideal way to do it. Eating a watermelon with maybe a cantaloupe, melons with melons would be better. The water content of the food. It's not a difficult topic, but in my books or even online, you can get a food combining chart that just tells you what types of food goes together better with other types of foods. So it's simple for that. And if you all have more questions, every week, every Wednesday night or Thursday night, I get online. If you sign up for I'm on Instagram, by the way, and Facebook. It's just Paul Nison. Oh, it's not there. But if you get online, I do a live Q&A every week. I think it's coming on. Maybe not. So yes, so we have time for 2 more questions here. And I'd love to answer more. You can hang out after I sell those books, then you can talk to me. But please consider getting a book, because when you look like me and you go to the airport, they don't let you in with boxes. So, yes.
What's your recommendation for heavy metal toxicity removal?
The body's going to naturally detoxify when you eat less and you get to sleep. That's how the body detoxifies. You can there's something called the Juva Herbal Cleanse, which is a full body cleanse. Any herbal cleanse out there, but some of the best ways to get rid of heavy metals is infrared. Infrared saunas, infrared dome. Do you know about the infrared dome?
I have it.
Yeah, those are excellent ways to get rid of it. Skin brushing and so on, these are excellent ways. But the herbs, if you go to an herbalist, they have some things that really pull the heavy metals out, and they know how to do that.
Yeah, I've actually led that specific cleanse, Ejuva, for years. I've done it for years and years, couple times a year, and I do everything you said, but I still have heavy metal toxicity, and I'm having to do other things. But I'm doing Andy Cutler.
There's a lot you can do, and we don't have time to get through it now. But if you contact me via the site, we can talk more about it.
Okay.
But there's definitely, if you're not getting results, you got to keep doing something until you figure it out.
Right.
But definitely the body can heal. One more question, then.
You got out of the restaurant business. Any particular restaurant that you prefer to?
If you go anywhere and you find a vegan restaurant, that's what I would recommend, a vegan restaurant. And, this question of supplementation I'll mention real quick. I think we should take supplements based on our blood work and our blood chemistry. If we're not getting what we need from food, food is the best place to get it. But if we're not getting it from the food, then take the appropriate supplements until we can find the food we need to get it. Okay? I have so much more to say, but not enough time to say it. So please go to my website. Like I said, every morning I'm on there live doing stuff, talking to you guys. And I already have 2,000 videos on YouTube talking about this stuff. And I know I take away a lot of people's pleasures because people say, you tell us to eat less, but we love to eat. I say, if you eat less, you live longer and you'll get to eat more, right? So thank you very much, everybody.